Picture this, a humble farm in 19th century Tennessee, home to the Bell family. Life was simple until one day in 1817, John Bell, the head of the family, came face to face with a creature that defied explanation in his own cornfield. That was the beginning of a series of unnerving events that turned their lives upside down. Unseen forces, untraceable voices, and unexplainable occurrences, all leading back to a single entity known as the Bell Witch. An entity that knew the Bell's secrets, meddled with their lives, and even crossed paths with future President Andrew Jackson. The hauntings continued, intensifying until, well, you'll hear about it soon. Hey there, curiosity explorers. Ready for another dive into the unknown? It's your host, Caesar, and joining me today, as always, is our vibrant commentator, Sonia.
Hi everyone. So excited to dive into today's topic. We're going to dig deep, so get ready.
Absolutely, Sonia. And remember folks, your participation is crucial. We love hearing your thoughts. So, don't forget to subscribe to the Curiosity Wonderland, drop your comments, and share our daily dose of curiosity with your friends. Let's explore the unknown, together. You know, this reminds me of something that happened recently. I was traveling in the Midwest, and I ended up in a small town with a history of ghostly sightings. The locals were all abuzz about strange happenings in a nearby forest, sounds heard in the dead of night, glimpses of a spectral figure, and even objects moving on their own. The eerie part? It all began when the patriarch of a prominent local family started reporting seeing a strange creature near their property.
Oh, that's uncanny. Just a few weeks ago, I was exploring a small town tucked away in the mountains of the north. They too had a long-standing legend of a ghostly apparition that had a special affinity for disturbing the peace of a particular family. The family's patriarch, a well-respected man, was said to have angered a spirit who then took it upon itself to torment his family. The stories were eerily similar to the Bell Witch saga, right down to the involvement of a patriarch and his family.
Going back to the story of the Bell Witch, the story has been around for more than a century. It all started in 1817, with a farmer named John Bell.
What happened to him?
John Bell encountered a strange creature on his farm, unlike anything he had seen before. He shot at it, but it disappeared. After that, weird things started happening.
We're talking about the standard haunted house stuff?
Exactly. Strange sounds like mysterious knocking, rats gnawing at bedposts, dogs barking and snarling, even chains being dragged across the floor. But that's not all.
There's more?
Yes, there's more. The family started hearing a woman's voice that seemed to know a lot about them. The voice was initially polite and religious, but it quickly became nasty.
Nasty how?
It would insult John Bell, interfere with his daughter Betsy's love life, and spew racist insults. But the most intriguing part was its intense hatred towards John Bell. It was kind to his wife, but tormented John until he eventually fell ill.
That's chilling. How did the community react?
The spirit became something of a local legend. People from all over came to witness the phenomena, even the war hero and future President Andrew Jackson. Despite the hostility towards John Bell, the entity was more than happy to entertain these visitors.
So, this ghost was an exhibitionist?
Seems like it, at least until it turned its attention back to tormenting John Bell. It's quite a terrifying tale, isn't it? As the story progresses, John Bell's doctor found a mysterious vial in his room. The Bell Witch claimed responsibility for it and even said that she gave John a dose from it. The next day, John Bell died.
So the witch claimed to have killed him?
Yes, exactly. It's one of the reasons why the Bell Witch story stands out. Most ghost stories don't involve a fatal physical impact on a person.
What happened after John Bell died?
The Bell Witch mostly left the Bells alone after John's death. It made sporadic appearances, but nothing like the sustained terror it had inflicted on John.
Was there any explanation for the haunting?
That's where it gets even weirder. The Bell Witch told the family multiple stories about why she was there, but none of them were consistent. At one point, she even claimed she was looking for a lost tooth under the house.
And was there a reason for the witch's interest in Betsy Bell?
Yes, the witch took quite an interest in Betsy's love life. She was being courted by a young man named Joshua Gardner, but the Bell Witch didn't seem to approve. She constantly warned Betsy against him.
That's definitely a ghost story with a twist.
Absolutely. The story of the Bell Witch is one that has fascinated people for over a century for its complexity and its refusal to follow the typical patterns of a haunting. The Bell Witch's interference in Betsy Bell's love life continued, but she never gave a clear reason why. She also revealed a name, Kate Batts, a woman from the same town as the Bells. However, she immediately denied any connection to Batts, but interestingly started responding to the name Kate.
Sounds like the Bell Witch was more of a riddle than a ghost.
Indeed. Over the years, many people have tried to make sense of the Bell Witch's motivations and identity. Some theories suggest the Bell's farm was built on a Native American burial ground. Others believed a schoolteacher named Richard Powell, who was allegedly interested in Betsy, summoned the witch after being rejected.
And yet, none of these theories provide a definitive answer.
That's right. It seems like each retelling of the Bell Witch story adds its own spin, often reflecting the societal issues and fears of the time.
So it's not just a ghost story, but a reflection of society's anxieties and fears.
Absolutely. The tale of the Bell Witch reminds us that ghost stories, like all stories, are a mirror of the time and culture in which they're told. The story of the Bell Witch has various sources, but the most popular version comes from a book by an editor named Ingram. He claims to have based his book on an unpublished manuscript by Richard Williams Bell, who was John Bell's son.
But the original manuscript has never been found, right?
That's correct. Some believe that Ingram might have actually ghostwritten the manuscript himself. There have been attempts to find sources predating Ingram's book, but so far, only a few leads have surfaced.
So we can't verify the authenticity of Ingram's version of the story.
Exactly. One of the interesting leads is an article from 1849 in the Saturday Evening Post. It recounts the story of the Tennessee ghost, but this version suggests that Betsy Bell was using ventriloquism to simulate a haunting.
That's a huge twist to the story.
Yes, it is. In this version, the ghost, once exposed, disappears.
So Ingram's version could have been a sensationalized adaptation of an earlier, less menacing tale.
That's one possibility. The twisting and morphing of the story over the years is part of what makes the tale of the Bell Witch so intriguing and enduring. Ingram's book was unique in the way it presented the Bell Witch story as true. As we see in many modern horror films like the Blair Witch Project, the line between truth and fiction is often blurred to enhance the experience and lure in audiences. Ingram added several elements to his book to convince the reader of its authenticity, including letters from people who claimed to remember the incident.
So he used these elements to add credibility to his retelling.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that Ingram's book was a product of its time. The year 1894 was a significant turning point in American history. The World's Columbian Exposition, also known as the Chicago World's Fair, had opened the previous year. It was seen as a celebration of the past 400 years since Columbus's arrival in the Western Hemisphere, but also signaled a shift in perspective.
How did this influence Ingram's portrayal of the Bell Witch?
This was the end of the frontier era in American history, a concept that heavily influenced the society. Ingram's portrayal of the Bell Witch, a female spirit, can be seen as a reflection of the societal anxieties of the closing frontier and the changing American identity. The spirit's tormenting of Bell and his daughter, coupled with her kindness towards Bell's wife, resonated with the societal shifts and uncertainties of the time. Turner's vision of the American frontier is reflected in Ingram's book. He contrasts the East, with its European customs and ideals, with the individualistic and independent identity of those on the frontier, which he saw as the true American identity. The frontier, in his view, promoted democracy and autonomy. The Bells, in Ingram's interpretation, embody this American ideal.
You know, this discussion reminds me of a childhood memory. When I was young, we lived on the outskirts of Pernambuco, close to the wilderness. Every night, my father would tell us stories of our ancestors who tamed the land and brought civilization to what was once wild and untamed.
And those stories, much like the Bell Witch tale, function as a way to solidify a certain identity, right?
Absolutely. Those stories of the frontier defined for us what it meant to be Brazilian, just as Ingram's book sought to define the American identity during a period of uncertainty and change. It's fascinating how folklore and stories can shape our understanding of who we are.
The story of John Bell as depicted in Ingram's book is a symbol of American masculinity challenged. Here is a man who has done everything right, according to societal standards of his time. He has worked hard to build a homestead, domesticates the land, and raises a successful family. And yet, he faces an unseen force that threatens to tear his family apart.
It's like he is the American Job, facing trials and tribulations.
Exactly. And what's interesting is the implication that the Bell Witch, a female spirit, triggers a crisis in this masculine space. She torments John Bell, threatens his daughter, yet shows kindness and compliments to his wife.
So there's this element of subversion of the expected gender roles of that time.
Spot on. Ingram's book serves as a cautionary tale, suggesting that rugged individualism isn't enough on its own. The attempt to tame the frontier without upholding orthodoxy and tradition can unleash nightmares. The frontier, or as it's now often referred to, the border, remains a contentious site for American identity. The idea of securing that space, defending the American project against the scary things on the other side, continues to resonate in our society today. It's quite amazing how a centuries-old ghost story can still mirror present-day anxieties. The tale of the Bell Witch, intriguing as it is, reveals more than just an eerie ghost story. It mirrors contemporary concerns about family, gender, and feminism. The malevolent spirit, a woman unattached to any man, who emasculates John Bell and threatens his daughter, reflects deeply rooted anxieties.
It's fascinating that this story from the 1800s can mirror today's discussions.
Yes, and perhaps this is why we can't look away from the Bell Witch story amidst countless other ghost tales. It resonates with current cultural anxieties, especially among white, male Americans. The story of the Bell Witch is a warning against deviating from tradition and a reflection of the fear of losing control.
Makes me wonder what other ghost stories might say about our society.
Exactly. A good ghost story resonates because it taps into the cultural anxieties all around us. They offer a safe space to explore these fears while constantly reassuring ourselves there's nothing to be afraid of. Yet it's this lack of definitive answers that keeps us coming back, trying to make sense of it all, and shuddering at the thought that we can't. The Bell Witch tale is no exception. It continues to haunt us because it reflects the unease of our society, which is why it's always worth listening to. So, we delved into the alarming legend of the Bell Witch, an entity that haunted the Bell family in 19th century Tennessee. We discovered how the story reflected societal anxieties of the time, particularly around family, faith, and the clash between man and the unknown. We saw a patriarch at odds with a powerful female spirit, an eerie reflection of contemporary concerns about gender roles and the fear of losing control.
The Bell Witch, a tale that unsettles us with its mysterious, powerful female entity and a family in crisis, continues to resonate because it echoes our own fears and anxieties. It's more than just a ghost story. It's a mirror held up to society, reflecting culture's own creations of fear.
And perhaps that's why we're still telling it today. It's not just a ghost story, it's a part of our history, our culture, our anxieties.
Exactly. And on that haunting note, we want to thank you all for joining us on this journey into the past and into our cultural psyche. If this episode spooked your curiosity or gave you some chills, blast that like button, drop a comment, and share it with your friends.
Absolutely, and remember, there's nothing to be afraid of, or is there?
Ha ha ha, until next time, dear listeners. Keep exploring the curiosities around you and within you. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Stay curious. This fascinating story about the Bell Witch comes from an article titled The Baffling and Terrifying Mystery of the Bell Witch, written by Colin Dickey. It was published on Big Think on October 21st in the year of 2023. The full URL is in the description if you want to plunge further into this eerie mystery. Now, I'm off.